Hello everyone, my name is Michaela O'Brien and I'm one of the course leaders on the Masters in Media, Campaigning and Social Change, and I'd like to welcome you all to this online information session about the course. What I'm planning to do this afternoon is to take you through some of the reasons why people choose to study this postgrad qualification with us. I think everyone has their own particular reason for wanting to apply to the course, and I've just sort of distilled the four main reasons to go through. The picture of the cakes, by the way, is a sort of optional fifth reason why some people choose this course. There's an amazing sort of cohort spirit and camaraderie, and these particular cakes were baked at the beginning of this academic year by some of the students who were presenting their ideas for a museum of campaigning. And they brought in these gorgeous cakes representing the museum cafe. So there are some unexpected bonuses and unexpected reasons to apply for this Masters as well. On a more serious note though, the four main reasons that I mentioned why people apply for this course are firstly that it's the only one of its type. Myself and my colleague Anastasia Cavada set the course up about 3 years ago to fill a gap which we were frankly quite amazed about. There are plenty of courses out there on communications generally, and some of them are excellent, some of them run at university here. There are one or two postgrad courses looking at not-for-profit governance and fundraising, but we are the only postgrad course that looks at this connection between media and campaigning for social change. And in fact, we also look across social movements, NGOs, non-governmental organisations, charities, trade unions. So we have this sort of unique blend of looking at the campaigning and the communications angle. And across a range as well of social justice issues, environment and health, LGBT rights, tackling the causes of poverty. So these are things that help make the course unique. One of the second main reasons why people come to study with us is that we're really aiming to inspire and inform the next generation of campaign communicators, people working for social change, people who are passionate about social justice and social change campaigns, and particularly the role that media plays in those campaigns. So by the end of the course, you'll have the core practical skills that you need to work in the sector, but alongside that also a deep understanding of the academic theories and the conceptual frameworks that underpin social change. We work very much alongside the not-for-profit sector to do this. When we first developed the course 3 years ago, we had a lot of input from leading campaigners and communicators so that we know you're learning the skills that are in demand, and in fact that in some cases you're ahead of the changes in the field. And you'll have access to that sector through Masterclasses and working on live campaigns, access to work placements. I'll go through some of that in more detail later in this session. There's some names there on the screen of various leading NGOs in our in our advisory panel, Amnesty, Friends of the Earth, WaterAid and CVO. And in fact, some of these are coming into class this Friday to hear students pitching their ideas around some live campaign briefs. The third reason why people come to us is because of the academic rigour of the programme. It's a fusion of both practice and theory, and we draw on these multidisciplinary perspectives for the academic element. Because the thing is, while sociologists are looking at social movements and issues around identity and mobilisation, and there are some communications scholars who are looking at charities' use of communications techniques. Obviously, there are people in political fields and from psychology examining some aspects of this work. There's surprisingly little academic writing that brings all of these perspectives together, and that's what we aim to do in this course. And there's a real thirst, I think, in the sector for these new insights to tackle the sort of the current and the emerging challenges, how to deal with post-truth, for example, in an environment with Brexit and Trump very much at the forefront of campaigners' minds. So this is key and becoming increasingly so, I think. And the fourth main reason that I wanted to highlight for you is the flexibility of the course. Again, there'll be more about that later in this session. Towards the end of the presentation, there's a lot about the logistics of dates and days of the week and assessments. But for now, the main point, I think, is that the course is designed very much with our part-time students in mind. About a third of our students are working full-time, many of them in the sector, in charities, trade unions and so on. And so we make the part-time schedule very manageable with Friday and evening classes. So I guess in that one slide, what I've aimed to do is sort of cover, as I say, the main reasons why people apply, but also, in fact, our course vision in a nutshell. The rest of what we'll look at over the next 15 minutes or so really reflects some of the main questions I'm asked about the logistics of the course. And then the key element of this session, of course, is the question and answer at the end. Okay, enough words on slides. Let's have some pictures of the students and what we do on the course. I mentioned the advisory panel and the organisations that support the course. These are some images from the last 2 years of students going into Friends of the Earth, who are one of our key supporters, to meet with campaign communicators there and get their insights into how campaigning communications techniques are changing. And I think these practical insights for students to compare with their learning in the classroom is really key and something that they highlight. This is one comment highlighting this sort of balance between practice and theory. I was spoilt for choice, I have to say, in pulling out positive comments. We're very lucky that our feedback is sort of typically positive. For those of you who are interested in stats and figures, the students are invited to evaluate the course in a number of different ways and forums. One of those is an anonymous student module evaluation, and the different core modules on the course always score around 4.7 or 4.8 out of 5 for those evaluations, which we are obviously very proud of. The advisory panel are also complimentary and say, for example, that the student work is very impressive, that they wish the course had existed when they were starting out, and so on. So those sorts of testimonials I think are valuable as well. In terms of the learning and teaching style, there's a mix in the course of workshops, lectures, seminars, group exercises. It's mostly very interactive. There isn't a lot of sitting in a lecture theatre being taught at. So this is one example of a masterclass on working with digital data that Glyn Thomas, who some of you who work in the UK will probably already know, Glyn Thomas was helping the students to prepare, in this instance, a survey about diversity for the Student Union campaign. It was so successful we ran it again this year. This is some of the current students who are just finishing off now. And this was some of those students producing an animated GIF for the NGO Share Action, who are planning to use some of these materials in their campaign later in the year. So you will literally sort of be doing training exercises and professional development that people pay to do in the workplace in the not-for-profit sector. One other masterclass that we had earlier this month, I had to use this picture, such great fun, such a great photo. This was a very fun session with Brian Fitzgerald of Dancing Fox, who was one of the people who helped transform the approach to storytelling during his time working at Greenpeace. So it was a fun session, but building on some very serious issues about how can social change campaigners really leverage what we know about storytelling techniques in order to engage people in this fragmenting and changing media environment at the moment. So one of the things that was great about this class was the way it built on some previous sessions we'd had, where we'd looked at, for example, Paletta's academic writing around storytelling. We'd looked at Chris Rose's work on values. We'd looked at different approaches to framing, to framing. And all of these sort of academic concepts really underpin the practical storytelling skills that we were looking at in this session. So I wanted to talk a little more about those sort of academic concepts. We have a very extensive reading list drawing on current academic journals and texts, and obviously you have full access to those through the library here. And as I mentioned before, it is multidisciplinary, and that's a unique aspect of the course, enabling students to pull out those insights and make those comparisons across the disciplines. It's a fast-changing field. One of the ways that we keep ahead of the changes is through kind of monitoring the academics who are researching on this and inviting them in wherever we can to speak. So the US academic Harry Han, who's pictured here, came in last year to talk to a mixed audience there of both practitioners and students and other academics about approaches to organising and mobilising. Her research is exploring, exploring what NGOs can learn from grassroots organising, and that's a very topical question that a lot of charities in particular are looking at now. Last month we also had the academic Karen Wall-Jorgensen, who was talking about emotions, media and the politics, and again talking about her current research and how that can help us to understand media representation. Some of our students on the MA do go on to take PhDs. We have several people in the faculty here researching social movements and social change, and it is an area of expertise in our faculty. I promise you that's the longest quote that I'm going to show you in this information session, but I wanted to sort of make the connection between the academic concepts and their practical application. So this quote from Brittany, one of our students last year, who's now managing campaigns, communications and fundraising in a not-for-profit in the US working on mental health issues. And I think her quote here about using both the practical and the academic insights on a day-to-day basis is sort of evidence of what we're trying to achieve with the course. We're based in London, obviously, and that gives us the opportunity to tap into not just the charities that are based here, but the other kind of cultural institutions. So this is a tour of the House of Commons, which followed a couple of classes looking at political communications and windows of opportunity in the political systems that can be used by campaigners. We also have visits to museums and galleries, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Tate. This was a visit that we organised into the Museum of London, where the specialist archivist, who's the woman standing up there at the table in the bottom right, was showing students materials from the archive of suffragette materials. So these are original, Votes for Women leaflets and postcards and so on of the campaigners that ran 100 years ago. The students were invited in, we were looking at the materials, discussing them, and this was ahead of an assessment in which they were designing their own idea of a museum of campaigning, conceptualising how would you represent the whole range and diversity of campaigning styles and issues and approaches globally. Some of those ideas are just fantastic. We're hoping to try and turn that into an actual exhibition or at least virtual museum at some point. Meanwhile, last year the students were invited to take those ideas along to the Campaigners Forum conference, the ECF Forum as was, up in Keble College, Oxford. This was last year's ECF. Wanted to show you a little grab from our course Facebook group. This is, I'm afraid, a closed group so that we can, share things without self-editing. But people who've got a confirmed place on the course will be invited to join this group in the summer. And we're really sort of trying to build an online community here. I think the passion, the shared commitment to social change is really what distinguishes work in this sector. And the cohort on the course certainly reflects that. So this is just two Facebook grabs that I'm sharing with you here. One on the left posted by a student, showing some training that she thought other people might be interested in. And the one on the right from my fellow course leader, Anastasia Cavada, just highlighting some new academic thinking following up a class about media representation. People have been sharing job adverts a lot in here too recently. The graduates are, all still in touch with us and with each other. and working in a whole range of jobs. So some people have been given promotions in their existing workplaces because of their involvement on the course. Others have got their first jobs inside the sector, transferring across from other sectors, or even the MA has helped them to secure their first job. So we have people working on all sorts of issues, both in agencies, in government, and actually in-house in different NGOs and charities. So it does set you up for a range of jobs. This is some of the course team. That's me sat in the middle with a purple and white frock. The other course leader, Anastasia Cavada, smiling at her laptop there on the right. And these other colleagues, Christian Fuchs, Maria Michaelis, Winston Mano, Rosa, names that you may have heard of, some of the leading thinkers really around this field, specialising variously in development, in critical analysis of media systems, in diversity, and you'll be able to tap into the whole expertise of the faculty and of our Communications and Media Research Institute. You'll meet quite a few of these people depending on which optional modules you take. You'll also be able to meet the advisory panel. This picture on the bottom there is from a networking breakfast which we had with students had just finalised the ideas that they wanted to explore in their dissertations or professional projects. We had those summaries going in the background, and there are people here talking with representatives from Amnesty International. Some of you may recognise Hannah Lounsborough there, the director of Some of Us, who's been involved with the course since before it started. Dwayne Raymond from Fairsay in the background there. This was a sort of a general networking breakfast, people getting advice on finding a job, on doing their dissertation research, and there really is that close connection that supplements the live briefs that you work on, the speakers, visits, and so on. We've had guest speakers come in from Avaz, from Greenpeace, ActionAid, 38 Degrees, as well as most of the organisations who are on our actual advisory panel. I'm going to flag up now some quite sort of information-dense slides. There are about 7 slides which have a lot of detail about the course. So I'm just going to sort of pull out a couple of key points from each of these slides and leave them there for you to come back to later. With the 3 core modules, which everybody studies, these have been developed with input from our panel and others in the sector, and what we've done is map the learning outcomes from these modules to the core knowledge, skills and attributes that we want everybody completing the course to have. So that means a mix of really being able to understand and engage critically with the key academic concepts, also having those practical skills that you need to get a job if you're newer into the sector, and covering the main issues that every campaign communicator should be comfortable discussing. So whichever mode you're studying in, you do these 3 core modules to give you that solid grounding. So these are the 3 core modules that everybody takes to give you that grounding in campaign communications, both practical and academic. The assessments are likewise varied, some of them more pure academic and exploratory, some of them very practical based on live briefs from the sector, and mimicking things like sort of workplace meetings and challenges and so on. There's a lot of opportunity to tailor these to your interests. You can choose the kind of the key issue you look at in your blog. You can choose the concepts you want to explore in your essay. You can tailor your dissertation to explore the sort of issues you might want to take onto a PhD, or you can tailor your professional project to your workplace or to your specific practitioner skills. So we have people doing stakeholder engagement strategies, doing video interview projects around empathy and storytelling, a lot of ability there to tailor it to what you're looking to get from the course. I mentioned the flexibility earlier. In addition to the 3 core modules that we've looked at briefly, there's also a whole range of options. Now, if you're working part-time or really you just want to come in and get that core learning, you can just take those 3 core modules and then finish. Take your postgrad certificate, job done, and off you go. You can continue on and take 3 optional modules to complete the diploma, or if you want the full MA, as well as those, you also do a dissertation or professional project. And we've designed it so that you can sort of chunk up and down. If you start full-time and feel you have to move to part-time, that's normally an option, visas permitting, and vice versa. And we've had students do that on all 3 cohorts of the course so far. Again, I'm absolutely not going to read all of this out for you, but it's to give you an indication of the range of optional modules which you can take, depending on whether you want to really hone some practical skills in social media or public relations to help you get, your first or your second job, or whether you're someone who's further on in your career in your 30s or 40s and what you really want to do is dive into the academic concepts where you might choose something like theories of communication. I also wanted to highlight the way the timetable's structured. So you'll see the core modules in semester 1 are on a Friday, and in semester 2 they're on a Friday and also on Tuesday evening, so that if you're part-time you can schedule your choices to work with your work responsibilities. And Friday is generally the best day to take off work in our sector if you're working full-time and studying part-time. I'm not going to dwell very much on the graduate quotes because I think I've been talking absolutely long enough and it's time to take some questions, but just a little bit more detail about what some of the graduates have appreciated about the course and the way that they've used it. There's a real diversity in the course, and indeed in the university overall. We are the most diverse university in the UK, won that sort of distinction during the year. And I think that's important, not just because diversity itself is important, but also because of the subject that we're looking at. So this brings real added value in the class discussions. We have global perspectives, we look at global issues. We're not assuming everybody has access to social media. In some parts of the world, SMS messaging is much more important for campaign communications. So we try to build that international perspective into the content, and the diverse student cohort absolutely helps us with that. So I hope that sort of whistle-stop tour has helped give you a bit of an insight into what the course is about. The applications are open now for this year. Some of you, I think, have already applied. In fact, I recognise some of the names who've registered. Some of you have already got an offer, and we're looking forward to meeting in September. But for those of you who are thinking about applying, do email me or message me on Twitter if there's something that I haven't covered and you'd like to have a one-to-one conversation. Or, of course, do send your questions in now, and we'll see how many we have time to answer before the end of the session.
I just wanted to quickly talk about the postgraduate loan that is available for Home and EU students. So this will be available for all Home and EU students for this academic year, and it's up to £10,000. And what happens is you're paid per third. You're paid at the start of every term. So that might be a bit different to how you might have to pay for the course because the money is actually sent directly into your account. But please do take a look at that, as it's not means tested, and it's if you are looking and you need the finance, then this is an option to be able to do it, and you can go to the gov.uk website and take a look at more information on how to sign up for it from there.
Thanks for that, Elgin. There are a few people on the course this year actually who've taken advantage of that loan. They were the first year for whom it was available, so the logistics seem to work fine as far as I can tell.
Excellent.
Okay, part-timers. If you're part-time, in the first term, you'll need to come to class on a Friday morning, and there are lots of optional extras on the Friday afternoon, like visits to the Tate and so on, which you might want to come to as well. So you need to take off Friday between sort of mid-September and mid-December. And in the second term, same thing, there's a core module on the Friday morning, optional extras in the afternoon, like Brian Fitzgerald's masterclass on storytelling, that went all day. And there's also a Tuesday evening lecture in the second term. So really you need Friday off for both terms, so that's from mid-September through to Easter if you're a part-time student. Now in terms of the reading, the assessments, preparing for class, obviously it's entirely up to you how you structure that. Most people who are working full-time in London while they're studying go on working 4 days a week. But that does mean, I need to be honest, that you will be spending quite a lot of your weekends or your evenings on your reading. So if you have the option to, at your workplace to talk about 1.5 to 2 days a week, you'd have an easier time at the weekends. But in all 3 cohorts so far, we've had people working a full 4-day week and just taking off Friday, and that's worked fine for them. There's a question coming in, I'm looking for a full-time course. Absolutely, about 2/3 of our students are studying full-time and 1/3 are studying part-time. So whichever mode you choose, it's designed to work for you that way, and there'll be plenty of other students taking it in the same sort of context as you. There's a question about age. I'm 33. Do you think the course is for someone my age? Absolutely. We've got a lot of students in their 30s. There are a couple in their 40s as well. So we have a whole range. We tend not to take people straight from their BA unless they're exceptional and they've already been involved in volunteering in not-for-profits. So the average age is probably late 20s, early 30s. So yeah, we welcome people of all ages. There's a specific question there about Tuesday evening classes, which we could probably sort out, Samantha, by a direct email. That might be easier. But yes, we accept that people, particularly if you're working, you won't be able to attend every class, and there are ways around that. We can record classes, for example. Got a question here about the last date to apply. Haven't got your diploma yet. You can apply now, while you're waiting for IELTS documents and so on. That's fine. We can always give you a provisional offer. If you have a look on the website, the link's there, it details what you need to send us. Really what we're looking for is someone with experience of campaigning, but that can be in a voluntary or a grassroots capacity. It doesn't have to be paid experience. A relevant degree, that's a very broad definition, and enthusiasm is the other thing. Can you attend other classes if you have time? Absolutely, as long as the other module leaders are happy with that. So some modules it's more difficult for you to sit in, but in general people are very happy for you to go and sit on other classes. And Samantha, you had a question as well about combining the postgrad certificate with other modules. Yes, that's certainly an option we can look at. Everyone has to take the 3 core modules. If you want to extend that into a diploma, you can either look at the pathways we've put together of suggested optional modules, or if there are particular things like screenwriting, absolutely, we can talk to our colleagues in the department looking after film and see if there's a place for you on that. And students have done that very successfully in the past, taken modules from other parts of the faculty. Okay. I think that's most of the questions. Katerina, I just want to come back to you about this question of a full-time course. If you're studying full-time, you take those 3 core modules and then you also choose your 3 options. And what I should say is that at induction, what we do is make time to talk through with everyone where they're up to at the moment, which knowledge, skills, attributes they feel they already have, and what they're looking to sort of supplement or really develop through the course, and we can help you choose the optional modules that are the best fit for you. So if you're studying full-time or part-time, you take those 3 core modules at the same time and together as well. Part-time, full-time students study together. If you're a full-timer, you'll be doing some of the other optional modules during the term as well. PG diploma and certificate offer similar career options. Definitely seem to so far the experience of the first few cohorts. One of the students studying part-time got a promotion from officer to manager level before she'd even finished the first year. So she hadn't even finished the certificate modules. Another student in his 30s who'd worked, in fact, in a university and wanted to transfer over into the not-for-profit sector, completed the PG diploma, so he did the 6 modules, and he's now working in fundraising and campaigning inside a national NGO, so absolutely it can offer the same career options. How big is the course? This cohort has been the biggest cohort this year. We've gone up to 24. Last year we had 12. The course is, the word is getting out, it's getting more successful, more popular. I don't really want the course to go over more than about 24. I think that's a great number for, really in-depth class discussion and exercises, and we all feel that we're kind of part of the experience. Some of the modules are attended by other students from other courses, so there might be some modules where you're in a class of sort of, say, 40. Yes, the course, question about what the full-time course includes, or the full master's course I should say, and yes, you will be writing either a dissertation or the equivalent of professional project by the time you finish up on the course. I didn't want to dwell too much on those slides that go through the logistics in the actual presentation because it would have cut into the time for Q&A, but if you've still got an outstanding question after we finish this session here and you really want to talk through the diploma or part-time or whatever, please feel free to get in touch. We can have a Skype chat or meet if you're based in London, and we can talk through all those logistics because I understand it's different for everybody. Some of our part-time students, by the way, are happy to talk to people who are considering applying for next year to talk about how it's worked for them. While we're just waiting to see if there's any other questions, I'll sort of talk a bit about what happens next. There are links there on the slides to the course pages, and at the top of the course page is the application button, big green button I think from memory, that you click on. Takes you through, irritatingly it takes you to a different website which you then have to register on. Sorry about that, not our decision, but just warning you. But you can apply there via the button on the web page. We aim to get decisions back very quickly, and you will be, if you're successful, then during the summer there'll be an opportunity to meet or have a Skype conversation. We send out suggestions about readings and so on. Some people want to do some reading over the summer to get up to speed before term starts. And we also send you information about the International Student Induction Programme, accommodation, and we welcome you into the course Facebook group. International students, there's a lot of extra information that international students need. Katerina, I agree. Happy to have a chat with you about that separately. There's also information on the website, but the sort of short answer is yes, there is accommodation for international students. Yes, we can advise you on things like the visa process. There's accommodation here up in Harrow campus and some in town as well. The last date for applying for the course, the master's course, it's sort of unlike undergraduate courses. So with undergraduate courses, there's usually a cut-off point, largely because of A-levels and so on. With master's qualifications, it's slightly different. So we look at applications as they come in. If you are considering applying, I would suggest that you try and get your application in within the next month or two. If you don't yet have all of the documentation that you're asked for, so for example, if you don't have references or if you need to take an English language test and you don't have the results yet, don't let that put you off applying, because we'll look at your application on its merits, and if we think, yes, absolutely, provided you meet a certain standard in the diploma you're taking now or in your English language test or whatever, then we can offer you a place and offer you a conditional place. So I would say apply earlier rather than later. We will close the course when it's full, but there are absolutely still places on the course now. So I would be aiming to get your application in really in April or May if you can. So thank you so much for taking part. I hope that's been useful and answered at least some of your questions. I hope you're enthused about the reasons why we encourage people to apply and why other people have chosen to apply. And if nothing else, I can promise you that I will share Polly's recipe for those beautiful cakes that I showed in the opening slide. So thanks again for your time, and hope to meet some of you in September.